On this week's Audiobook Club, the latest instalment in Richard Osman's Thursday Murder Club series of whodunits set in a sleepy retirement village, and it's a killer.
Chapter 5. Joyce. I will admit that the murder of Bethany Waits was my idea. We were all looking through the files for a new Thursday Murder Club case. There was a spinster in Rye, in the early 80s, for example, who had died, leaving 3 unidentified skeletons and a suitcase containing £50,000 in her cellar. That was Elizabeth's favourite, and I agree it would have been quite jolly, but as soon as I saw the name, Bethany Waits, on another file, my mind was made up. I don't put my foot down often, but when I do, it stays down. Elizabeth sulked, but the others knew not to argue.
Hello, I'm Steve Phillips, and welcome to another episode of Audiobook Club, a podcast about audiobooks that's fond of strawberry yoghurt and thinks chewy sweets are fun. On this episode, we'll be sinking our teeth into The Bullet That Missed, the third and latest instalment of Richard Osman's Thursday Murder Club series of whodunits. Joining me down the line from Adelaide in Australia, Matt Layton. Hello, Matt.
Hello, Steve.
Whodunit then? Well, it's probably getting a bit previous, isn't it? Straight in there.
Well, do you know what? Again, we find ourselves in the position where the answer is it doesn't really matter. I enjoy these books so much and look forward to them. And to me, the murders are secondary, and it's about the characters, my new imaginary friends who are the lead characters of this series. I don't know. You started reading book number 1. I'm on book number 3. The rules here at Audiobook Club are if somebody's further down the series, then the other person starts at book number 1. Have you got 4 new friends, Steve, or are you not quite into it yet?
I haven't quite got into it yet, I'll be honest. I can relate, I can picture the characters. I can picture Ibrahim and Elizabeth, not so much Joyce just yet. But no, I feel the coziness. Is that the right word? It feels it's a nice cozy thing. I'm feeling a bit Miss Marple about the whole thing. Am I feeling wrong?
I don't know. Let's go back and do our usual, before we get lost in conversations and blind alleys, let's do our usual thing where we start off by looking at the author, and then we will look at the book, and then we'll go and see if we're satisfied with the way it was narrated, or if we like it. What we tend to say is how it was performed, if it's done really well. So, Richard Osman. Richard Osman he used to describe himself on Twitter as that bloke off that thing on the telly. He's one of those people. He's not necessarily an A-list star in the UK, although he's getting there, I think. But he has been on an afternoon quiz show called Pointless as co-presenter for the last 12 years. But before that, he had a really impressive career behind the scenes of television production. So he started in 1995, according to Wikipedia, which I'm not necessarily claiming is accurate, with Hat-Trick, who they've done loads of comedy. You're familiar with Hat-Trick Productions, aren't you, Steve? And all of the good stuff that they've done.
Yeah, well, Hat-Trick have produced some of the biggest hits in UK TV over the years. The list is pretty lengthy. There's probably about 50 shows here. Well, no, more than that, probably about 70 or something. But anything from Father Ted, Have I Got News for You? Outnumbered is a big kind of sort of pseudo-reality kind of office-type show, but it's surrounding sort of a family. But they've been going for so many years. They've been going since the 80s. This is David Lander from 1988.
Whose Line Is It Anyway is actually a really interesting one, because that's the one that got some traction in other countries with their own versions. There was certainly one in the States with Drew Carey, I think, in charge. I have to say, you have to give a little tip of the hat to one of Phone Jacker, which I think is one of the funniest programs that went out late night. You got home after the pub and watched it. Sir, you have a pigeon in your bank account. Just a brilliant company with a thorough pedigree, and for what seems, if you believe Wikipedia, to be Richard Osman, the author's first job out of university, that's quite impressive. Then he moves on to Endemol. We've talked about Hattrick being the company that produces some of the most famous comedy in Britain. Endemol, of course, makes some of the most watched television in the world, including Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? So, he was a high-flying person before we'd ever heard of him. And in 2020, he released the first book in this series, which was called The Thursday Murder Club. This book is set in a retirement village, and I'm sure in said retirement village, they would have Richard Osman's television program on. It's become an institution over the last 15 years or so. But you were telling me that there's been change, Steve, yesterday.
Well, this week was a momentous moment in history because it was the first ever Pointless without Richard Osman. So he's obviously got a lot on his plate now, and it's time to leave the nest. And he's been replaced. Kind of what they do now is if there's a very popular game show host, or if there is or popular sort of co-host, they'll replace them with a series of names of people you've heard of, people you know and love, to take over the role. And that's what they've done here. I think there's 6 people who are doing this on Pointless now. He did say he would pop back occasionally, maybe just celebrity ones that more people watch.
To me, as somebody who would quite happily be a sidekick on a quiz show, and that would be enough for the rest of my career, Richard Osman has probably been able to quit because Amblin Entertainment have bought the rights to the first book in the series. And so Steven Spielberg will be directing the film of the first book, which is, that's pretty good, isn't it, Steve?
That's not bad. I mean, you've had worse days, haven't you? Steven Spielberg buys the rights to the Audiobook Club podcast. I mean, it'd be a cold day in hell if that ever happened, of course.
Oh, who's going to play me? That'll come up later. Look, he's a pathologically nice man. He's the type of bloke you take home to meet your mum. And again, looking at him on Twitter, there was just something jumped out at me. That Twitter is a seething pit of bile.
Yeah.
And I saw him tweet something, and I remembered it from months ago, went back and looked it up, and it said, "I was tying my shoelace this morning. How on earth did we all learn to do this? It's so complicated. Well done, everyone." Would you like to read a book written by that man? And the answer is yes, of course you would. So, The Thursday Murder Club, you read the first book, didn't you, Steve, which is called The Thursday Murder Club?
Yeah.
And I read book 3, which is The Bullet That Missed. Although you did kind of get it slightly wrong, didn't you?
Well, obviously I forgot the rule that we've been talking about for not inconsiderable number of weeks, actually, Matt, and we've done this several times before where you've skipped along, read the latest one to review, and I've gone back to the start of the series and I completely forgot. So I downloaded The Bullet That Missed, read the first 4 chapters of that, and then started on the Thursday Murder Club. So what that does mean is that I have a jumbled mishmash of books 1 and 3 in rolling around in my head at the moment. I'm just picking it apart. Who was in that bit? Yeah. So,
That's absolutely fine. Worry not. I have been totally and utterly immersed in this world for the last week. So I read the first book when it came out back in 2020. Then I waited a year for the second book. And then I waited another year for the third book. And this week I started with book 3 and then I went back to book 1. I'm very glad I did. So the headline idea of this is that the way the publishers are selling it, the elevator pitch is the fact that this is a whodunit in which the detectives are 4 old people who live in a retirement village. The social message behind it is we as a society relegate old people to the scrap heap. Once you hit 70, you become just an old person, not a fully functioning human being. But of course, people in their 70s and 80s have more memories and experience than anybody else. And while that's I think Osman sets out, and there are a couple of interviews at the end of each of the books, and he says, I don't want to be patronizing. And yes, you're right, that does bring up the Miss Marple rural village type of thing. But these books are very much set in the modern world. So in book 1, I think it's described as, the rolling hills and the sound of cows mooing and the Amazon delivery trucks going over the cattle gate as they come in to do the deliveries to the people who live in the retirement place, Cooper's Chase. The subject matter, I think, Steve, is darker than you would expect and more complex and more dense than you would expect from a Miss Marple or a Midsummer Murders. It's more intense than that, I think I found. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you're right, of course, that on the surface, when you're being interested, so I am very new. I always say this sentence, which makes me feel like dear listener, you're probably forgiven to think, does Steve ever read anything ever? Because every week I say, yeah, I'm fairly new to this book. I'm fairly new to this author. I'm fairly new to the human race. How do they function? These sort of things. But I'm fairly new to the Thursday Murder Club, just to continue that vein. So on the surface, when there's that line about how they meet up in the first book, and they talk about how the reason why it's called the Thursday Murder Club, and saying it's because that's the slot they could get at the town hall to book out. Not town hall.
No, it's not the town hall. It's the jigsaw room.
The jigsaw room, yeah.
And they put it up there as Japanese opera enthusiasts to guarantee that nobody is going to disturb them.
Yeah.
And they're
Japanese
in the
Japanese opera, a discussion.
Yeah, that's right.
So no one would turn up. It's great. It's brilliant because that's where it starts, because as soon as you open that door, of course, they're all discussing the murder and what's going on and who did it and all this sort of stuff. And it's, so it starts to lose that kind of, once you start getting into it and the characters and the storyline and everything starts to surface and the strands and the threads and everything, absolutely right. It gets more intense than your Marple.
Yeah, and you have to point out that at various points during the series, even the most mild-mannered character drugs somebody, helps to dig up some bones and hide it from the police, and effectively lets a murderer get off scot-free. So, these aren't the nice little old ladies you might expect. So one of the things that's different about this for me is that over the last 4 years, the 4 main characters, the 4 senior citizens at the center of the book, have become people I know and that I like. The people from Mr. Osman's head are people I'm concerned about and want to know. So there's Joyce, who's a former nurse and a peacemaker, but she's not that shallow and one-dimensional. She's the one who actually drugs an international money launderer by using quite a clever trick. And then there's Elizabeth, who seems to be the leader of the gang, and she's a former MI5 or MI6 agent. She's been everywhere. She's been to Lebanon, to Krakow, to do things that we don't know about but sound very cool. So she's incredibly sharp, incredibly ruthless, and just brilliant. Then there's Ron in his West Ham shirt. He actually has a profile. Some people recognize him for being a trades union negotiator in the 1970s. And then there's Ibrahim, who you say you've got the greatest handle on, who is a psychiatrist, somewhat of a pedant, very wise, but also seems to be, well, something horrible happens in book 2, which I'm not going to mention. But if you do get that far, Steve, you'll be concerned for Ibrahim and you'll become deflated. Did you like any of those characters in the snippets of the 2 books that you've read?
Yeah, I like Ron. There's something, well, because I'm East End London, so that's where my family are all from. It's the kind of the wit of the Cockney and all that kind of stuff, and they are razor sharp. I'm also a West Ham fan as well, so naturally I did gravitate towards Ron just to bring in some vulgar sport into the arena, which we never ever do, of course. Apologies for introducing you to cricket again, Matt. The offside whiffle and all that sort of stuff. But yes, I like Ron. But also I do.
Okay, hold on. Before we move on, so Ron, as you say, he's hard as nails. You wouldn't pick a fight with him. He got locked in the back of a van with Arthur Scargill under arrest, back of a police van with Arthur Scargill at some point during the 80s. He's a West Ham fan. His son is a boxer. How do you, as an East Ender, feel, as the descendant of an East End family, feel about Richard Osman, that specky bloke off the telly, writing about East Londoners? Does that feel right to you, or does that feel like, a bit like, Pulp's Common People and everybody likes a tourist? Where do you stand on that?
I mean, it'd be really easy to say if you were just kind of, heard half an hour of the audiobook and not bothered with the rest of it, to think of Ron as a stereotype. But Richard Osman, I'd suggest, probably has the grounding. He's from Billericay, Richard Osman, which is a town in Essex. It's South Essex as well. And basically, when, obviously migration away from London meant that people, when they went on holiday, they went to Southend if they lived in East London, because that's described as London on Sea. And Billericay is not too far down the road from there. So people, migrated into sort of South Essex. So if you listen to people in South Essex, they'll sound like, geezers or whatever. They'll talk in sort of Cockney or East London accent. The further north into Essex you go, they'll talk Lake Farmers.
That's true.
It's a very rural accent. So yeah, and because Richard Osman was from Billericay, of course he's very much still with us and doing very well, then I think he gets a pass.
Do you know what? So I was baiting a trap for you there. Basically, he says in one of the interviews that actually this book is very much about class. And he says that, Ron and Joyce, while they're in this very gentrified retirement community, are both working class, and that Ibrahim and Elizabeth, the former MI5, MI6 agent, are definitely middle class. And he says that basically he grew up in a working class family, and then, as I've quite incorrectly perceived, when you see him on the television in glasses and a suit being all clever and that, you assume that he's middle class. So a lot of that, as I said, the one line he said in this interview was like, it's all about class. And you and I have tried, we've known each other 20 years. We don't talk about such things. But it's interesting that if I were to try and write this book, even though I'm, to look at me and Richard Osman, he's 6'7", I'm 6'4". Funny enough, we both have the same eyesight condition. He has nystagmus, both educated at the same university. If I were to write Ron, people would come round my house and smack me on the nose, I think. But you quite rightly pick up that I think...
No, not at all. No. I mean, honestly, Matt, as you say, we've known each other for 20 years. Every moment I have spent with you, I feel there's an underlying feeling I should be doffing my cap and discussing how we can sort the drainage in the lower field. And also, I don't know if you noticed, but whenever I've sort of left your flat, if you've had a beer or whatever, I start to walk backwards towards the front door away from you. So, it's not all, you wouldn't be hit on the nose. You'd be probably, I'd feel the intimidation of your stature,
Yeah, no, fair enough. Your family went to fetch my sedan chair.
Exactly. Will that be all, or shall I leave the podcast?
But genuinely, if I tried to write a book like this, it wouldn't work. If I tried to write those characters, it wouldn't work. I also think he's incredible at writing. Well, I don't know. I don't know how women think, Steve, but the book kind of follows some of the characters.
That's another notes from the margin, by the way. We really do need to have some diversity on this podcast fairly soon.
Yeah, we do, don't we?
We do.
we really do need to do
it's
something.
Knocking on the door very loudly.
Yes. But it's about a quarter of the book is written as a diary by Joyce, who is, well, so it's interesting. He plays a little, what he calls a parlor game with us. The casting, the film is about to be made, and there are actors being cast for these roles. And he, at one point, plays a little parlor game with us.
To me, people say Julie Walters should be Joyce. I think, well, how can that be possible? Joyce is Joyce. That doesn't make any sense.
Julie Walters for Joyce is a great idea, actually.
There you are, you see. Yeah, Helen Mirren and Julie Walters. Yeah.
Yes.
So Helen Mirren for Elizabeth, for me, as I say, I'm what am I, 24 hours into listening to this audiobook series. I went, yeah, all right, Helen Mirren, Elizabeth, the 70-something spy, hard as nails. Julie Walters, nah, unfortunately it's not possible, but for me, the person who should play Joyce, the person I picture in my head is June Whitfield, but not the Miss Marple June Whitfield, the Roy Hudlines June Whitfield, the slightly lewder, funnier June Whitfield that's on that doesn't
the racy June
racy
Whitfield.
Is the word I was looking for. Thank you very, very much, Steve. So a lot of the book comes from this sort of June, in my head, June Whitfield is reading it to me. So I think, yeah, the characters are the key, are a huge key part of it. And as I say, I don't really care who done it. I just love these people. I really enjoy spending time in their company, and they are three-dimensional characters who are my friends. And as with all of that people are your friends in spite of their faults, and they all have their faults and foibles. But I think they're all brilliant. Honestly, Steve.
Yeah, I was getting kind of the shoots of everything you're feeling, and I'm quite jealous of you actually being in your position that you've obviously read the 3 books now, and you know these characters inside out, so you can expatiate on them so eloquently. And I'm not there yet. But to be honest, I'm incredibly galvanized to want to devour all 3 books now.
Okay, well, it's a gift to be unwrapped, and we haven't got to the stage where we've done something for a second year yet, and you go on to book 2 and I go on to book 17, or vice versa. So maybe this is a gift that will be unwrapped by you over the next couple of years. So apparently he has a contract for 6 books, so there are at least another 3 to come. Moving on to the narration of the book. As you know, Steve, if you're playing Audiobook Club Bingo, one of the things that I often say is when I hear the news that the book is being narrated by the author, I don't always think that's a good thing. Sometimes there are budgetary constraints, and the publishing company will say, hello, Mr. Author or Mrs. Author, why don't you come to a studio and record your own audiobook? Where what they should have done is probably hire somebody who can actually read an audiobook. And Mr. Osman has very modestly gone, well, you may know me off the telly, but the idea of spending 19 hours recording an audiobook is, particularly one that's written from such a female perspective, my voice isn't the right one for this. So the first 2 books were narrated by Leslie Manville, CBE, and there's kind of an elephant in the room, because even in the interview after book 3, nobody mentions that it's a completely different narrator. Part of this thing is that it's something to be comfortable. I'm sorry to do this. I really, really am. And I'm, the generation who are portrayed in this book are incredibly adaptable when given new circumstances. I'm not. I'm a grumpy man entering early middle age, and they changed the narrator on me, Steve, and it's not the same, and the voices are different.
Yeah. No, if I can soothe your audio brow for a moment there, Matt, but this is a wider issue, and I think this actually does. When the writers went on strike in America because they don't get the recognition as the actors who are in the stuff that they write do,
Yeah.
This is a similar situation here, is that I don't think enough is made of the narrators of audiobooks. Because it's the audiobook version, it should have absolutely been, it's kind of like when you've got a favourite radio presenter who you listen to every day and it changes. No explanation, no nothing. Where's that presenter gone? And the same thing here. I think more needs to be made of it. I agree with you. I don't think it's just confined to this series, but when they change the narrator in any audiobook series, the heart sinks in the same way as when the author reads the foreword of their own book and it says, and now, here's Donald McClackett to read the book, you know, or whatever. And your heart sinks a little bit because it's not them carrying on reading it because, you know, frankly, I'm not going to sit 19 hours in a studio reading this, you know.
But I'm complaining in this case, but I'm guessing that Miss Manville was busy this year. A little bit of internet research reveals she will portray Princess Margaret, Countess of Snowdon, in the final 2 seasons of television series The Crown. I don't know this because nobody's talking about it, but I assume that that's why they've had to replace her. Now, she's been replaced by Fiona Shaw, CBE, an actress with some chops, in theory, exactly the same type of person. But for me, the voices of the characters changed. And technically, there's nothing wrong with Fiona Shaw's performance, as you would expect. And she does some innovative stuff that Leslie Manville doesn't do, which is when you're looking at something from, say, Polish character Bogdan's perspective, she sort of uses a watered-down version of the Polish accent when she's narrating around it rather than doing direct speech. So that's quite clever, and I've never heard anybody do that before. But it just... part of the idea of this is that it's meant to be like the reliable, like the snug pair of slippers, like the comfy pair of shoes. I should stop moaning. It's Fiona Shaw. I should be grateful for what I've got. First of all, thank you, Mr. Osman, for writing the book. Thank you, Leslie Manville, for narrating / performing the first 2. And Fiona Shaw, well done. Thank you. And all the respect I could possibly give you for your professional skills. But please, can we have Leslie Manville back for book 4?
It could well happen. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, Fiona Shaw is an amazing actress. You know, Killing Eve, obviously in Harry Potter as the mother of what's his name? Arnold. I can't remember his name now. Dursley. Yeah, I can't remember his first name. Sorry, Harry Potter fans. Like you're listening.
I could ask the girls, as you know.
Yeah, ask the girls. Yeah, I wouldn't have a hope. But this is more than just switching out a voice, because it's switching out the voices, because the narrator has to do all the voices of every character. And so you are, over the course of, let's be fair, 12, 13 hours per book, you get used to them, you get comfortable with them, and then suddenly a new narrator comes along with their take on the voices, and suddenly those characters are different. It's almost like, you know, in Neighbours, when they kept changing, an actor or an actress for, to play the same character, and no one batted an eyelid. Least of all their close relatives, just like, oh, Lucy Robinson, you're back in. No one then says, hang on a second, you seem to have put on some height, or something like that.
I think it's like restaurants, Steve. Like when you're in your 20s, you want to go, oh, I want to go to try this new restaurant, and I want to try this new food. But when you're in your 40s, it's more a question of, no, I want consistency. I want to know that the restaurant I'm going to will give me exactly the same chicken breast that I had there last week and the 26 weeks before that.
Yeah.
There's just that kind of thing as you get a little older. But as I say, Fiona Shaw, we're very, very lucky to have had her.
Yeah.
And it's a problem with me, not with the logistics of the recording of the audiobooks and the personnel. I'm very much aware that this is my bad, Steve.
Before we get to... that's all we have time for on Grumpy Old Men. We do need some diversity. We do admit that. We need some diversity. If anyone wants to come on, bring some diversity to this... to stop this, we could go on for ages, actually. This is this 4-hour podcast. And another thing...
we could just sit here and list our ailments.
I tell you what... forget the narration. What about some of the pronunciations of some of the names and things?
No. You know what? There were a couple of things that irritated me. Pevensey, isn't it, Steve? Pevensey? Yeah, exactly.
Pevensey.
All right. There were a couple of things, I think, again, with a change of producer and the person who runs the audio recording session and sits behind the glass and makes sure everything's right. And if a narrator trips over a word, goes back and makes them correct themselves. I did find that there were a couple of errors creeping in, but I emphasize And actually, we all know the name is pronounced De Freitas, not De Freitas, I think, because that's how it's been pronounced in the first two books. And there was a cricketer called De Freitas, wasn't there?
Phil De Freitas, England fast bowler. Yeah, also plays for Lancashire.
Thank you. That rounds out my argument perfectly, Steve. Glad you got the details there.
That's okay.
But I don't like to criticise that. Our job here is to recommend audiobooks. If you're playing Audiobook Club Bingo, I once auditioned to be the producer of an audiobook, and I am not technically good enough or fast enough to do it. So those little bumps in the road can derail a listener's experience. But the thing is, and I hope we haven't offended anybody, but I am down on my knees recommending this series of audiobooks. I'm recommending the stories. Above all, I'm recommending the characters and the relationship that you build with them over time. And yeah, if this is about us, the reason we do recommendations, Steve, not reviews, is because if you're going to spend £7, $15 and 12 hours of your life doing something off the back of what we've said, then we'd better be damn sure it's good. And even though there were those little irritations that bothered me, I am a grumpy old man. It's my fault. And these books are excellent.
They are good. You've inspired me today to really race through these books now, because I kind of really want to devour them because of your eloquent descriptions of the characters above all else. So we come to the point where we say, if our listener wishes to play along, what should they be reading next, Mr. L?
Well, I say what you said, which is we do need to break out of our comfort zone. I think it was great that we had Shane on last week recommending the biography of the punk rock band, and you can listen to that Audiobook Club. But yeah, please, anybody else recommend us a book. This should be the bit where I'm taking other people's recommendations. But this week, we're going to take one of Mr. Osman's recommendations. As he was finishing the first book, he was very excited by the fact in the interview afterwards that he was about to go and read the new book by Ben McIntyre, who apparently writes historical fact books but makes them feel like a thriller. So I did a little bit more research into that, and it turns out Mr. McIntyre had a book that came out in September 2022, this month, about Colditz. In the fiction, non-fiction kind of way of things, let's do Colditz by Ben McIntyre for next week.
Perfect. Sounds good. And just down the track, I've just looking at your little wish list here, by the way. Your little playlist of what we can
you know what? So last night, I was writing down all of the books that Richard Osman recommended. He does this amazing thing where, as I say, he's got the same eyesight condition that I do, but he's much better at expressing that I am. And he says, because my eyesight's not all it could be, it takes me ages to read a book, and I love audiobooks. Richard Osman is invested in the audiobook as a form because he consumes them. So he mentioned authors including Michael Frayn. The first interview was conducted by Marion Keyes, Patricia Highsmith, Jeffrey Deaver, and Mark Billingham. So maybe we'll come back to those as they come out. But yes, you've got Alan Partridge up there, haven't you? You're going to gift me a book, possibly the week after next.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the credit to drop. But basically, as we record, my credit dropped. Now there's a euphemism for the 2020s. Alan Partridge from the Oast House podcast was a huge hit a few years ago. Mm-hmm. I think around 2019. 2020. Just another angle, another take on his character. I mean, we've all grown up. Well, many of us have grown up with Alan Partridge since we were nippers, and the Oast House podcast was so good. And series 2 dropped today as we record, so that's one for the future. It's about half as long as the first one. Who knows? You decide if that's a good or bad thing or not. But that's something to look out for.
Two things. One of them a note from the margin, which is you say waiting for your credit to pop up or drop or whatever it does when you get to our age. A little notes from the margin thing, the bit where we talk about audiobooks as a concept. I've started consuming many more audiobooks since we started doing this on a regular basis. Just a little practical top tip. is if you go onto the website, you can buy 3 audiobooks for 18 quid, six quid a piece. But actually, in the app, you can only spend £9 on another credit. So if you're using Audible and you're consuming more than one audiobook a month, go to the Audible website, not the app, and get yourself 3 credits for slightly less money. There you go. That's practical consumer advice there. And then the next thing is Alan Partridge, I'm very nervous. I find it very difficult. I find Ricky Gervais's The Office and Alan Partridge slightly uncomfortable, partly because they feel a bit too much like a reflection of who I am. I am that kind of objectionable, selfish, unpleasant, laugh at, not laugh with kind of idiot. So I just go, oh yeah, I do that. For example, Alan Partridge is famously associated with Roachford's Cuddly Toy. I have 3 Roachford CDs, and I've been to see him live in concert and paid money for it. So I always end up turning off after 5 minutes of Partridge. So I'm looking forward to the discipline, to being made to sit down and listen to him until it's finished.
Yeah. So this time he'll be having a go at the format we're literally recording at the moment.
Yeah, and again, that's the problem.
There's no escape, dude. I know. This is the problem. It's
just going to sound like me on this, and I'm just it's going to make me crawl back into a hole and give up.
No, Matt, we've got a choice here.
Mm.
Either we face the demon down, or we simply run away like he hasn't released these podcasts. But he has, Matt. He has. We must review.
Yes, Steve. Yes. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. You won't regret it. You'll feel better for it. It'll be cathartic. I'm hoping anyway.
Oh, God.
Anyway, that was The Bullet That Missed, Thursday Murder Club Book 3 by Richard Osman, narrated in this instance by Fiona Shaw, and comes in at 11 hours and 11 minutes, potentially 11 seconds. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.